Hello and welcome back to Unpopular People.
We believe that listening and learning from each other is key for personal development and success.
Today in our interview, Thiago from the Gold Coast.
He's a black belt Jiu-Jitsu originally from Brazil.
Today he runs his own Jiu-Jitsu business at the Gold Coast in Southport, Australia.
He is married and he has 2 kids. If you want to learn how to handle this whole situation, running a business and having a family at the same time, then listen to this inspiring interview with Thiago.
You will find the show notes to this interview on our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
You can support us by donating on our website or sign up for our newsletter, also on our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
And now have fun with this inspiring interview.
All right. Hello, Thiago. Thank you for your time for today. We will ask you a couple of questions about you, about your life, where you come from, where you're going, and we hope it will be great. But I'm pretty sure it will be. So we always start with the same question: where were you born, and how did you grow up?
So hello, guys. Thank you for having me. So I was born in Brazil. And I grew up in a small city very close to the ocean called Natal. It's like a fisherman's village. And I grew up surfing and, around the beach and around soccer. And yeah, it was a very good time. A lot of freedom, no technology. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, hello from my side as well. Nice to meet you here today. And how was your childhood like? Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Do you have brothers or sisters? How was it back then?
My childhood was interesting, because culturally, north of Brazil is a very violent place. Like male-dominant, violent place, So my father was very much into alcohol. He was very violent towards my mom, which was quite normal within all my uncles, So the culture was very violent towards women, especially. And I have 2 brothers. And I have 2 other sisters from my father's side. Like my brothers and me, we always protected my mom a lot. We started to work in a very young age. When I was 11, I was collecting money, working in buses. The guy that collects money in the bus. When you get into the bus, there's a guy that collecting money. So that was me. When I was like 11 years old, I started to do that because my father had a little business. It was very challenging for me, more because of violence and alcohol, and as well the culture of the place. Everyone was poor around us, and that's how we believed life was. We did not believe people could get financial freedom, or I could not believe that people would live any different than what was happening around us. So it was very challenging, but it made me strong and made me to look after my family very well. And my brothers and myself are very connected. I talk to my mom daily. I talk to my father daily. So I have no any bad feelings for what happened to me in the past. And I just accepted everything and led me the right way, actually.
So what did your parents do for work, and what do you what do your brothers and sisters, what do they become? And maybe you can tell us a little bit afterwards what you're doing now.
My father is an Uber driver. Back in the day, he had his own business, but he did not have the right mindset, so he broke the business. He had a couple of businesses, and he just opened and broken because too much alcohol, too much distractions, self-sabotage. My mom, she was very inspiring because she worked a lot. There was a long time in our life that my father was unemployed and my mom was the one paying the bills, working 2 jobs. And when she was about 40 years old, she went back to university and she got graded again and she got her degree, and she now she runs her own business, and her business is doing very, very well in Brazil. My middle brother, I'm the oldest. He is a professional diver, so he spends most of these days under the water. He was also a very good surfer, has been sponsored for surfing forever. And my little brother is a Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He teaches Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. He works with martial arts. He is constantly competing. And myself, I was in the army for a long time in Brazil. And then I was instructing soldiers. I was teaching at schools. I was doing university as well. And then when I finished all of that, I decided to come to Australia. And here, when I arrived, I worked as a laborer. Basically, when I arrived here, I had $500 in my pocket, and I could not speak the language, so it was a little bit of a challenge. But straight away, I started to work, laboring, and every job I went, the boss always, I was a hard worker, I could not understand much, but would work very hard. And then I started to study again. So I studied marketing first, and then business, English, leadership, and then I went back into sports coaching and then fitness again. So I just kept studying through my entire time here. And even now that I opened the business, I keep studying. Harvard University does a lot of free courses, and I keep doing those courses, the ones that I like the most. I go and do it. I'm currently doing a leadership one that is very, very good. And now we have virtual. I opened my business now, and it's going to be 1 year on the 21st of September that we opened the doors. The business broke even with 2 months of operation, and it has been doing very well since we opened the doors. Of course, we had COVID-19, which was very hard for us, but we were able to get back on track as soon as we could open the doors again.
Yeah, cool. Such interesting story. When did you start with Jiu-Jitsu? And for our listeners, they don't know that we are here in your Jiu-Jitsu studio right now, and this is your business. When did you start? And what did you learn, or what was it for a journey until now for you in the Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So I started martial arts in general since a very young age. So my uncle was a Brazilian boxing champion, and when we were very young, we started to do a lot of boxing. But I had 2 brothers, so boxing was not the right sport for 3 males in the family, because we would punch each other, right? Whenever we had an argument, the tools that we had was okay, we do boxing, that's what we know how to do. So we throw punches. My father started to notice that, and a lot of my friends in Brazil, they started to do Jiu-Jitsu. However, when I was young, Jiu-Jitsu, was for rich people. Jiu-Jitsu was for the elite of Brazil. It was never for the poor people. So poor people did capoeira, and then rich people do Jiu-Jitsu. That's just how it was, So I got into capoeira for many years, until one of my friends from school, one of my good friends from school, we in Brazil, we do college games. So for example, here in Australia, let's say TSS will play against Southport State High, and then Southport State High will play against Kumbamba. So like we do it like that. There is like an inter-college games in Brazil that is huge. And one of my friends was going to fight judo, and I had scholarship to play soccer. So I was already enrolled in the games to play soccer. And my friend got hurt, and I think I was 11 years old, and he said to me, "Man, can you take the fight for me?" I was like, "I never trained judo, man. How am I going to take the fight?" He goes, "But we wrestle a lot, and I have taught you some moves, and you should do it." And then end up that I just threw everyone on the ground and won the competition, So I go like, yeah, I have the skills to do it, and I liked it. But I was never pursuing Jiu-Jitsu. Even that a lot of my friends would do it, and we would wrestle on the sand, and and the reality back in the day, Jiu-Jitsu was not a business. Jiu-Jitsu was like someone that was very passionate about the sport would open their little school, but they would have to do other types of work to maintain that school. So that was sort of like a hobby and a passion for the professors. And therefore, the schools were very small, and they only would accept very tough people. So like if you come to the school, they would try to break you. A jiu-jitsu instructor back in the day, they would try to really break you mentally. And there were a lot of fights in Brazil too. So my father was not keen to me to train jiu-jitsu. My family, because people, if one gym saw the other team members of another gym on the streets, they would fight, like soccer in England. Yeah, so was very was very rough. But when I joined the army, we had a lot of grappling sessions, and one of my good friends was a Bellator fighter. So he was fighting Bellator and national events as well in Brazil in MMA. So I started to practice a little bit of more jiu-jitsu and ground. But I never got graded. So I never went through the belts because I never wore the kimono. I never had money to buy a gi or to pay proper membership fees to get graded by someone. And then when I arrived in Australia 11 years ago, I actually go, okay, now I would like to train with the gi, because a lot of my friends here were training. So I started to train under Thiago Braga from Legacy, and it was very good. We're still very good friends, and he introduced Jiu-Jitsu for me. But what made me to stick to it was, one, the healthy lifestyle, because as a fighter, if we're constantly training, you don't have spare time to do wrong things. What happens as well is I want to perform well every day. So I need to. Why? Because every time I come here to the school, it's super challenging for me. People come here and they want to beat me up, right? So every day, even the students, they do that very best when they train with me, even because I ask them to do it. So yeah, when they train with me, I go like, guys, look, you guys gotta push it, you guys gotta give them a hard time. So it made me to stick to this lifestyle, and as well the fitness. I was always very involved in the fitness industry, and I've been studying fitness forever. And I think whenever I could teach a class in Jiu-Jitsu, my classes where people would really talk about the classes. People would go like, wow, man. I remember I was a blue belt, and if I teach a class, the black belts would look bad, and people would come like, man, how do you do that? How can you teach a class like that? And everything was through planning. I cared a bit more than the other instructors. So for example, if you go like, Thiago, you're going to teach today, I would arrive here earlier. I would make sure the mats were clean. I would prepare the class. I would review the movements. When I got on the mats, I was already fully prepared to teach that class. But I did not know it was going to become my business. So I started to teach in schools, and investors started to approach me to open my own school. Whenever people saw me teaching a class, they would come to me many times and say, "Man, how much do you need to open your school?" And I was like, "Oh, look, I don't want to open it now. I want to wait until I'm a black belt." Or I never accepted help from anyone. So for me, it was very hard, still very hard, to accept help, because my parents could not help me much, and I was by myself forever, paddling. But then I started to study more, and I started to gain more experience and make less mistakes. And then I opened the first school, and it was a disaster, because I opened with an investor, and the relationship was no good since the beginning. But I decided to try, talking to my wife and to a couple of friends. They said to me, "You gotta give it a go. Try it. We teach you good lessons. If you fail, doesn't matter." But I already had that gut feeling that it was not gonna work. So I opened a Gracie Barra called Gracie Barra Surfers Paradise. I built that business from scratch. I transformed the warehouse, and I painted, I built walls, I did all the social media, I enrolled the first 85 students inside of the school. But the relationship with the investor was no good, and was not ego or anything, but I teach the kids here to stand up for themselves. So I apply the same thing to my personal life. If I feel someone doesn't have respect for me, and is, have bad intentions towards me, I will stand up for myself. I was very polite, but I walked away from it. And then I decided to open my own brand. Then that was very challenging too. Another chapter. But my wife, was very good as well, because I asked her, I said, I have two options. Option one, I go back teaching at TAFE or colleges or whatever, and get back into the fitness industry, which is good salary, doesn't hit my body as much, but I'm gonna be working for someone else. And option two is I risk, and I build my own brand, and we see how it goes. And she said to me, "I believe in you, just do it." And then I started to do it. Yeah. And then, of course, I asked daily questions to her, and I started to read a lot before I opened the business. I always been reading a lot, but before I opened this business here, especially before I opened Gracie Barra, I think I read about 7 books that helped me a lot. But before I opened this business here, I was listening to podcasts and reading for most of my day to prepare.
What podcasts were these, and what books? Do you have some recommendations, or let us know which one?
Like the podcasts, I love podcasts about high performance athletes. I listen to a lot of Oprah Super Soul. There's like interviews. There's another podcast that I'm listening a lot lately that is it's called Never Stand Still. It's a beautiful podcast about business and about business experiences. There's another podcast that I like a lot, that is the Impact Theory. I like a lot Joko's podcast. I really enjoy his podcasts. And like books, but like, look, I listen to a variety of things during my day. So for example, let's say now I'm thinking about investing more, so I'm reading more about investing, and I'm listening to more investing podcasts. When before I was thinking about building the business, so I was reading like about how business fail, how to build a strong business, so I'm researching the topic that is currently affecting me. In books, I can recommend a lot of books to you guys, but I think a book that changed my mindset was Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. Another one was Good to Great. I think it's from Jim Collin, maybe. It's a beautiful book. There is a book that I read not long ago from Joko Willink as well, that it's called Leadership Strategy and Tactics. This is a beautiful book because I deleted a lot of things that happened in my life in the army. I blocked them, so I no longer have those memories. But when I read this book, a lot of those memories came back, and I thought that could be a bad thing, but that helped me a lot to lead the business. Straight away after I read that book, I got more people to work for me. I made a couple of changes that I needed to make, so it was like a good strategy to read that book. It was a good book, and I do like reading a little bit of every day. I like to read every day, at least for 45 minutes, so it's a must. And every morning I wake up with a podcast. So when I wake up and I'm cooking my breakfast and preparing the kids' breakfast, I'm always listening to the podcast. And most likely I'm here by 6 a.m. So I wake up, 4:45 daily. And then I wake up, I drink a good glass of water, and I started to prepare the breakfast, and I listen to something, at least for half an hour or until I get here, Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was really nice. And if you want to have a podcast about investing, there's a TIP podcast. It's very good. The investment podcast, or the investors podcast. But that's not my question. I was wondering, you said earlier that you struggle with taking help from other people. And I also know now that you try to, or that you don't want to remember the time, or that you want to block those memories back from the army. But because the army depends on help from each other, I guess. I never went to the army, so I don't know. So how was that for you? I mean, for a person that's have a hard time to accept help from others, working in an environment where you 100% depend on the help of others, how was it for you?
So this is a good question. So in the army was very much different, because when I joined the army, I was working the black markets in Brazil. I was selling video game parts on the streets, right? And this is like on little tents. We get wet from the rain. You get cold from the winter. People are selling drugs, around me. I have seen people, being stabbed in front of me. And I was very young. And when I joined the army, my decision to I could not decide or not if I was going to stay or not, because it was compulsory. I had to. But what made me to think about it was like, man, do you know what? These guys are giving me free clothing and free food. I just got to listen to them and do what they're telling me to do, and I'll be right. But I was very fit. I was always very fit, and I always loved fitness and exercising. And one of the things that I was always good at school was I was always good at following instructions. So if the instructor told me something, or my teacher told me something, I would follow exactly what they told me. I would not try to do my own thing. I would just go like, okay, that's the steps, I'll follow it. So in the army, that helped me a lot. And in the army, the reality, I did not accept help from everyone either. It was more that select group of people that I started to trust on them. Because my first experience in the army is, as a soldier, you join a group of 100 other soldiers, and we are struggling together. And and the commanders and the captains and the sergeants, their job is to tough you up and to give you a hard time during that period of training. So you start to discover a lot of people there. And I'm very good at selecting my friendships, and I'm very good at coming to people and say like, look, I have no time for you. And in the army I did that many times. So I had people that I would trust and that I would accept help, but there were not many of them. And those guys are still around me until nowadays. But a lot of the other guys, many times, I would come to them and say, man, look, I just have no time for you. I would not be rude, or I would not be I'll not try to offend them or bring them down, but I'll just ignore it and walk away from it. And I think I learned that as a very young child, because I was a poor kid that had scholarship to play soccer in a very rich boys' school. So I did not have many friends there, you know. Like I had curly hair, I had a gap in my teeth. People would bully me all day, you know. So I did not have many friends. So the group of friends that I made was very selected, and most likely they were athletes. Like my entire career, my entire life, I was always hanging around people that was very good at sports. In university, it was just the same. As a university student, I was hanging with the elite athletes of that university, because I would train so hard, I would get involved in those activities. And that helps you to select your friends too, because people that are not in the same pace as you, they straight away don't want to be beside you because they feel bad that they cannot do what you do. So they walk away too, you know. So for me it was very good. And in the army, like, I think I had good and bad, but I had more good leaders than bad leaders. So I have guys that I would really look up to them. You know, I would go like, man, this guy is, 65 years old and he's running 10 kilometers in, 12 minutes. And after that he's doing, 30 chin-ups and, he's working all day. His uniform is unbelievable, and I would go like, wow. So I had like great leaders, and because I didn't have my father and my mom around me too, those guys made me a good person. Because I do strong believe, you guys can argue with me on that one, okay? But I argue with my wife a lot about that. But I do strong believe that everyone is born bad. I do believe that people, they are born bad. So for example, my kids, how many times I have to say to my little kids to don't do the same thing over and over again? How many times for example, a couple of years ago, Hunter, he's 3 now, but when he was 1, if I put my finger in his mouth, he would bite it until he, snap my finger off, right? By instinct, not because by instinct, So I do believe that everyone is born bad. And then when you have good influences in your life, and you chase education, and you chase self-development, then you become good. But it's very hard to stay good too. And that's why like relationships break, and that's why business owners become too powerful, and that's why politicians become corrupt, because of the influences that they have around them. And that's why I opened the Jiu-Jitsu school, because I think we like empowering people constantly here. We're helping a lot to educate. I get like, per day here I see over 100 people per day coming in and out, and we providing a little bit of education for all these people, plus for the family because they bring it home, plus for the cousins that they're gonna hang out on the weekend. So there's like a ripple effect there. But yeah, the army, I think trust makes you to accept help. If I don't trust you, I don't know if I should accept your help, I think you got to build that relationship first.
Thank you. Next to the skills in the fighting, you teach your students. What is it what you want to give to the people, to teach them mentally, like not only your students but also for your children? What is most important when you think back of your experiences? What do you want to teach people in general?
That's another beautiful question. So I think I have to teach people to believe in themselves, so I try to minimize the mistakes they make, because by experience I have made a lot of mistakes, so I try to share with them my experience, but I try to empower them and to make them, a little better every day, I think martial arts is just a tool. Jiu-Jitsu, like the position itself, it's just a tool to help them out. it's something technical that help them to pay attention, to focus. But when they actually fighting and when we actually moving, that's when the struggles come through, you know. So the challenges, the self-talk, when you're fighting someone, you constantly, you know, like, oh, this guy, I'm in a bad position now, am I gonna get out, am I not, like, you're constantly doubting yourself. So I think my biggest mission is like one, I want to see people healthier, and two is I want to empower them and make them to believe that anything is possible, because I never had anyone telling me that was possible to actually come to Australia, open a business, build a family. When I was young, a lot of my uncles I would see them talking about it, like saying to my father, the way your kids are going, they're gonna be drug dealers. The way they're gonna be this. I didn't even know if I was gonna be alive after 16, you know, because it was a very, very rough childhood. And people picked on my mistakes and the things that I did bad. As now with my kids and my wife, I try to potentialize them. I don't pick too much on the things that they go wrong. I try to appreciate as much as I can the things that they do that is very good, you know. So I bring them up right like that, and I try to teach my little boys as well by experience and showing them the world. So for example, I see that Australia is a very safe place and people are very lucky, and they have everything they need, most of people here. So for example, when my kids are taking a shower and they're taking too long in the shower, and I say, okay, Zion, Hunter, get out of the shower, and they say, no daddy, I want to stay more. And then I go, man, a lot of people around the world has no water. They don't have water. You cannot waste water. And then they go, oh, really, daddy? And I was like, yeah, I'm telling you. And then I go and show them something about it. So they look at it and they go like, oh, wow. We should not waste water. So I try to teach them why don't do wrong things and why they have to be good. Because back in the day, I just knew that I had to, but I didn't know why I had to do those things. Why do I have to study? Why do I have to look after my brothers? I didn't know, I just had to do it. But I think when you know the why, you can do a better job, you know, because you start to focus more, you have more strategies, you perform much better. And I always say to the students here, I say, there's an old saying, Australian saying, that says, you can only give the water to the horse, but you cannot make the horse to drink the water, right? Old school Australians, they say that a lot. Old school martial arts teachers, they have said that a lot back in the day. As in my point of view is like, no, I think you gotta make the horse to understand why he gotta drink that water. Otherwise, it's just gonna die looking at it, you know. So if you bring that into a company or, you know, into your family as well, you know, like, why do you behave like that towards your wife? Like, why do you want her to do this or that? Or it just your relationships start to improve a lot. And by improving relationships, you just have more connections, more opportunities, and then it just becomes a snowball, you know.
So coming back to the point when you said everyone is born bad, and you said then like it's the influence from the people around you, or like the influence like from your surroundings or from your environment that shape you to the person you become. So what happened to you then? Because you grew up in an environment where there wasn't like good influence around you, and you decided at some point to become the person you are now, that you're a lifelong learner and that you always want to improve yourself, always want to do something better. So what was the influence for you that pushed you in the right direction?
So I love that. So the influence was the army, was very good for me. A good friend of mine as well called Juliano, his father was in the military, and nowadays he's like has his own Pilates studio in Brazil, and has done a couple of Ironman courses as well. He runs the Ironman, and he was an amazing influence in my life because he was much older than me. So he would give me a hard time daily, like he would give me a very hard time daily. But the reality, Ben, what made me to get where I am now is my daily decisions. I think I always made good decisions in relation to, should I do that or should I not do that? Should I go this way or should I go that way? Should I be here using drugs with my friends or should I go and surf for 2 hours of my day? Should I when this kid is bullying me, should I stand up for myself or should I cry and walk away from this situation? So it was always those decisions, and I think the daily decisions that we make is what makes your future. And the reality is, I did not want to be like my father. That was my fight. My mental fight was studying in a rich boys' school. I saw a lot of families, having everything, and I would come home back home for poverty, and I would go like, wow, man, what went wrong here, And I could see that one was bad habits, and two was the lack of education. That was a mistake that my family made. Not my mom. My mom was super healthy. But it's hard when you have someone unhealthy beside of you forever. And she was very loyal to my father. And I don't blame my father, because the reality is like, he was a product of, the entire environment that he came from. And I just had better decisions. I had more desires. I had more dreams. I want to be better. I want to achieve. And I think that was because of sports. I would go to capoeira. My capoeira instructor would make me to clean the gym. And I was a little boy, and I'm cleaning the gym, and he would come and check it out and say to me, "You're not doing a good job." But today, if you get one of the kids from, a private school, I'm not going to name the school, but you get one of those kids from a private school and you tell them they're not doing a good job, they'll melt. You break them. They'll melt. You're going to break them. So I wanted to improve because I was never good. I was not good at soccer neither. I had scholarship. People go like, "Oh, we're so good at soccer." I said, no. I was not good at soccer. I would just play more than everyone else. I would go and train. And in the army, I got a medal called the distinction medal. So I got the best soldier of my year. And like, when I got it, it was funny because I go like, I didn't even thought I was gonna get it. I was just doing my thing. I was not focusing on being the best. I was just trying to follow the instructions and do my best. So I was always doing my best. And one of the things that I learned in relation to performance is that it's never about how much you know. It's about how much you care and how much you want it. Like, if you care a lot and if you want it very badly, you get it. You achieve it. So my environment was unhealthy, but that taught me a lot. Because it taught me the bad. It taught me, things that I did not want to do in the future. I did not want to be pushing a car in the middle of the street with a drunk father and my entire family around me. I did like some experiences that I had. I go, I'm never gonna cross that. When I'm older, I'm not gonna go there. Can I do that? I don't know.
And you said your mother was very inspirational for you back then. And did you have, or do you have any role models still that brought you in the direction how you are now?
Yeah, I do. Like I have a lot of role models. The reality, my mom, of course, my brothers as well, because my brothers went through the same adversity as me, and they are very successful in their fields. A lot of my jiu-jitsu professors had beautiful influence in my life, good and bad. I had some professors that taught me like, that's don't do it this way, you'll go wrong. And I had a lot of professors that taught me like, man, look, that's the way you gotta do things, And I think I'm very good at adapting and at listening. And when someone comes and tell me something, I never take it for granted, and I never go like, I know, like people come to you and say like, hey man, look, you should do this and this. And some people go like, I know. I actually pay a little bit more attention. And I think, why should I do that? And then I ask someone else, hey, what do you think about this? And then, the person comes with another opinion. So I like diversity a lot. And I have a lot of mentors. Some of my students here, I have one of my students here that, like, he's like a business mentor for me. I trust him so much. He's like, I don't know, he's someone that wants to see me to succeed. When you get the vibe, like you see like this guy just wants the best for me, and every time he talks to me or he gives me an advice, I can feel that, so I'm constantly looking for role models and for inspiration as well, because when we look from outside and we see like, oh, the guy's running a martial arts studio and everything is easy, but people don't see me, arriving here 5 a.m., teaching, 7-8 classes during the day, plus privates, picking up kids from school, training. I train at least 3 times per day. Myself, I train at least 3 times per day. And then 9:30, I'm here cleaning toilets before I go home, you know what I mean? So it's like it's not an easy career. It's not an easy thing to do, So I gotta look for daily inspiration. And I love a lot reading as well. So I'm reading at the moment Relentless from Tim Groover. It's a beautiful book. I'm almost finishing it. He was the mentor, I would say, mindset coach of Michael Jordan, and a couple of other basketball superstars, high performance athletes, Kobe Bryant. So I'm constantly trying to learn something new there. And the podcasts as well, man. I think nowadays, instead of listening to the radio when I'm driving, I'm listening to a podcast. If I'm mowing the lawn at home, I'm listening to a podcast, I learn a lot from the other people's experience. And I think everyone that does something good for other people can inspire me. Even little things, like for example, I'll tell you guys a cool story. There's a guy from down the road here that has a sushi shop. And since I opened here, I go there once a week with my kids. And my kids love him. My kids, they adore him. He's an older guy, a Japanese guy, and my kids go there. He makes magic to my kids, and he brings more food than we deserve, and he's unbelievable. And a couple of weeks ago, I lost my wallet. After here at the gym, I went for dinner with the kids, and I got home, I was like, man, where's my wallet? I could not find it. I must have left it at the gym. Around 11 p.m. at night, someone knocking my door, and got out of bed, and I was like, what's going on? My wife and me, we went downstairs. When I opened the door, it was the guy from the sushi shop with my wallet. And I go, man, what you doing here? And he goes, Thiago, your wallet. And I said, you did not need to bring it today. I could come tomorrow, pick it up, that's all good. And he goes, I did not want you to sleep worried. And I got so emotional. I said to my wife, how many people there's out there that would do that? He's thinking about me. He's a giver, and I do realize nowadays that to run a healthy business, you got to have the same mentality. You got to help the others. If you just think about how can I get more, how I'm going to make more, your business is not going to grow. I see that's if you start to think, man, how can I add value to what those guys are paying here? How can I bring more people into the business so they also live the same thing that I'm living? How can I daily help those guys to improve, so maybe my instructor here is going to teach a better class than me? You know, like I think when we have this sort of mentality, things start to get better. The universe starts to help you a little bit, you know, and then you start to grow. But it has to be daily. It cannot be I do it for 2 days and then you forget it for 2 weeks, and then you do it for 2 days again and then you forget it for 3 weeks. It has something that every day you're trying to improve a little bit, you know.
So what you're kind of saying is you can only be successful by making other people successful too, and
listening and learning is the key for personal development and success.
So does this also work in a relationship, like in a marriage? Does it also work the same way, like you, like for example, if you have a company and you take care that like the people that work for you are successful in whatever they do in their own life, so they become better workers, or maybe like start their own business one day too. Does this like same principle work for you in your relationship?
Yes, 100%. Like my wife is a teacher, so she's the head of Department of Humanities in St. Hilda's. She teaches like ancient history and English. She's like a very smart woman. She reads like crazy, you know, much more than me even. And we learned a lot because our relationship is much better now than it was during the beginning. Because it was very hard to understand each other, and a lot of the times when you begin a relationship, you want to change that person, right? And you want to make them to be as you want them to be, you know. As I gave up that in the first month, you know. So I had to start to understand and talk to I talk a lot to my mother as well, and I started to, I think two things are key for a healthy relationship: trust and not create expectations, you know. So for example, let's say that I'm driving home and I'm expecting that my wife is going to cook for me, that the house is going to be clean, and when I arrive there, it's not what I'm expecting. Guess what? We're going to have an argument, right? Or my mood's not going to be good, and straight away we're not going to connect very well. As if I'm driving home, and when I am not expecting anything, and when I arriving home, she did that dinner and the house is clean, man, guess what? I'm going to be super happy, you know, because she just made something that I was not expecting, you know. So I think in a relationship, one, we should not expect too much, the good or the bad. So once one of my friends, he got cheated by his wife, and he said to me, "Thiago, what would you do if it was you? If your wife cheats on you, what would you do?" And I would say, I'll shake her hand and say, "Thank you for your time," and I would walk away and live my life, man. He goes, "Would you be upset?" I was like, "Maybe a little bit for one day." It was for one day. I was like 100%, and he was like, "Oh, because I don't expect anything different. If she does it, it just means that she's not my woman." You know, black and white. Am I thinking she's gonna do it or not? No, I don't think it neither. I don't even think about it. But I just think it's like you gotta trust the person until they prove it wrong. And if you create those expectations, you're already bringing a bad type of energy to your relationship, and that can destroy the relationship. You know, because the reality, most of relationships get destroyed because people are not feeling each other's expectations. I don't know, that's my belief.
So I mean, this is a kind of like a freedom you want in your life, that you say like, oh, you know, you trust this person so much so you can move freely too. Because if you always walk around with like worries in your head, oh, she's gonna cheat on you, or she's gonna do like this and that, I mean, doesn't this mean for you that you're a free person? And like, does it mean a lot to you to be free in those terms?
Yeah, so I just think it's I don't even have the time for it. I just don't think. It's not that I don't have the time for it. I don't want to put my time there. And like I just reserve my time, like most of my time, for self-development and to look after the family, and of course the business. But things that I cannot control, I don't even think about it. I don't think about it. So for example, I cannot control if my wife is not with me and she's going to be cheating elsewhere. I cannot control that. What can I control? If one day, for some reason, you discover it, and I can go, okay, thank you very much for your time. Just do your thing from now on. I can control that completely. I don't think about that, because for me, like, it's the same as the business. Imagine, for example, if I keep thinking, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Is this going to break? Is this going to, am I going to be able to make this work? I don't think that. Why do I don't think that? Because I know that every day, if I believe on the mission and I keep working hard, there's no way that it will break. And if it does break, it's because there's something else that is going to come after that. So I don't put my energy on those sort of thoughts. I think I did back in the day, but I can control it much, much more now. Never in relation to cheating or to anything like that, but for example, before competing in Jiu-Jitsu back in the day, I would start to think, man, can I win? If I lose, as now I go, I'm prepared. If I win or lose, doesn't matter. I'm fully prepared. I'm doing everything that I can to achieve that result. I don't know. I just think you gotta put your energy and your time where it grows. Not long ago, one of my professors said to me, Thiago, you gotta multiply your energy, right? And I said to him, Professor, how can I multiply my energy? I already do so much. I'm working out daily. I'm everywhere. I'm studying. And he goes, no. I'm not telling you to do more. What I'm telling you to do is, I want 20 Thiagos here. How can I have 20 Thiagos? I said, I don't know. And he goes, you got to teach people to your qualities. So I try to teach my wife my qualities, and I try to learn from her qualities. So I have no time to think about what are the things that she's doing wrong the most, but that doesn't mean that I cannot give her a feedback. If I see that she's doing the wrong thing, I'll come to her and say, look, Anna, don't do this. Let's try to do it this way. I have that freedom. I have that. I have that as well. I must do it. If I like you, Ben, and you're doing something wrong and I don't tell you, I'm no longer your friend. Do you know what I mean? If I'm doing something wrong and one of my friends come here and supports me, I cannot trust that person, because they're gonna guide me the wrong way. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that he cannot be my friend. He can still be around me. But would I take his advice? No. I'm not gonna take your advice. So I think in relation to relationship is, one is we got to learn how to control our thoughts. Two is when people started to think that other people are doing something wrong, I think it's a lack of confidence, and I think most likely they are making a mistake in some area of their lives. Maybe they are doing something wrong, and they're trying to pass it on, that energy towards someone else. And I see that a lot in relationships. A lot of the guys that are cheaters are the guys that are most afraid that their partners are going to go out and cheat on them. Why? Because they do it. For them, it's just common, They're going to do it, So I believe I believe in energy. And like with my wife, I always say to her, I say, look, I already have to share a lot of energy with my students during the day, and I have to reserve the right amount of energy to share with my wife. And that energy, we don't try to push it to the dark side of the relationship. We try to just lift each other up and solve problems and keep going. Is it a perfect relationship? Of course not. It's up and downs. But we respect each other. We never insulted each other. We don't scream at each other in front of the kids. You know, we try to solve the problem by talking. If I feel I'm getting agitated or I'm gonna take a bad decision, I walk away and I ask someone. Many times I have rang my mom and say, "Mom, do you think am I right? I gotta do this and this and this. Should I do that?" And my mom would go, "No, don't do it." And I go, "Really? Why?" It doesn't mean 100% that I'm gonna take that advice, but means that I'm overviewing the situation, and then I can take a better decision.
I have another question. So, was there ever a situation in your life where you could use your jiu-jitsu skills? So, for example, somebody robbed you?
Yeah, so I use my jiu-jitsu skills daily, especially for the business. There's a lot of concepts in jiu-jitsu that I bring it to my personal life and to the business. One is that jiu-jitsu is constantly putting you under pressure. So you constantly trying to solve a problem. Two is that in jiu-jitsu you don't know what to expect. So for example, 10:30 we have a class here. I don't know who is going to come through the doors. You know, so it can be a guy that is 60 kilos and it can be another one that 140, and I have to tap them out the same, you know, so I got to solve that problem. Saying that, like, jiu-jitsu gets me very confident, and as well it helps me to control myself. Sometimes even if I'm extremely agitated and angry, I can calm down very quickly, you know. The army helped me that as well, because in the army, self-control is the key for good performance. Because many times I want to punch a captain in the face, right? When they come in and give you a hard time, and you know, and really insulting you, or you know, or bullying you in front of. And sometimes I would close my hands and go like, "Man, I'm gonna knock this guy out," and then I had to fight my own brain and go like, "No, I cannot knock the guy out," right? But in jiu-jitsu helps me, like, overall, and my family as well believe jiu-jitsu. But there's a funny case that happened not long ago. Someone tried to steal my wife's car from our place, and they drove the car away, and we woke up in the middle of the night, and I had a broken foot after a competition, and the first thing that I thought was like, they gotta wait for the gates to open. It's a gated community. I go like, they gotta wait for the gates a little bit, so I'm gonna get them, you know. And my wife was like, don't do it. And I was like, 100%. I was like, don't call the cops. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, don't call the cops, just wait a little bit. When I come back home, I call the cops. So I went to the gates and I was waiting. When the car stopped, I took the first guy out of the car, and the second one ran away. And then the first guy that I took out of the car, I just gave him one punch, and he turned his back and I choked him out. And then I put him back in the car. I drove him around to see if I could find the other guy, because I was very mad. I want to get the other guy, because the other guy, like the other guy, for me, he ran away. He left his friend there, so I was mad with him, you know. I was like, man, I'm gonna get you, you know. You were the bad one, you know. But then I choked this guy a couple of times, and I gave him a hard time. And when the cops arrived, so it was very funny, because I said to her, don't call the cops, and she actually did not call the cops. And I brought the guy home, and I put him sitting on a chair, and I was like, I'm not gonna call the cops tonight. And he started to scream, please call the cops. I was like, no. So all the neighbors started to show up around, you know. And I was like, no, man, you're gonna stay here with me all night. And I was like, no. So he started to piss himself, and then my wife comes through the door and say, do you think he wants some water? And I was like, water? And that's what the guy's trying to steal our car, you know. But I was mad because he got inside of our place and he got the keys from our place, and I have 2 kids. And I said to my wife, I said, Anna, if I got the guy inside of our house here, I don't know if I could control myself as much as I could control there, because I didn't hurt him much. I gave him a hard time, but I didn't hurt him much. And when the cops arrived there, the cop even said to me, "Thank you for not hurting him." And but the guy was all pissed and was all, a little bit bruised, but not much. But Jiu-Jitsu teaches me about self-control and about self-confidence. I really believe that I can walk away from a situation and build it from scratch again and again and again. I also believe that no one can beat me up mentally or physically unless I allow them to. So I do believe that that's totally under my control. Especially, for example, when I built Gracie Barra, I went to Arizona to develop a program for Gracie Barra, and when I was there, the investor emailed me sacking me. So he emailed saying, "Don't come back to the school." And I was developing a project for the international organization of Gracie Barra, by jealousy and a couple of other things there. So when I came back, my wife said, "And now what are we gonna do?" I said, "Don't worry about it." So when I arrived here 11 years ago, I could not speak English and I did not have the skills I have now. So we're safe. We have some holidays. And she go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Don't worry about it. We just keep going." But then my professor called me and said, "Thiago, can you please teach 2 weeks there? Because the guy sacked you, but he doesn't have an instructor. So we need your help." And I was like, the guy just sacked me. Now you're saying that you need my help to build his business up again? And my professor said to me, "Yes, man, I need." And I said, "Okay, professor, as you're asking me, I'll do it." And he said, "Don't talk anything about the business. Just go there, do your job, and go home." And I said, 100%. But then when I arrived there, the doors were closed. And they changed all the locks of the doors for me. And I built that school. So that broke my heart. So I could not open the door. I was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Man, they changed the locks. Like, maybe they think I'm going to steal from them, or I don't know." So someone arrived there to open the door for me, and I had to teach that class, and emotionally I was just broken, because the feeling is like you lost the love of your life, that was my feeling there, like the story just begun and I lost it, and I was blaming myself a lot. I was like, this is my fault, I screwed it up. But then I took a big breath and I go, the mission is to teach a good class. That is it. I came in, I taught the class, I went back home, and I just kept my head up high. I did not let the guy to affect me. And when I walked away from the situation, I was making twice more money than I was making there. I had much more time to spend with the family. The entire thing was so good for me, so good, because I accepted it and I understood it, and I kept flowing with it. I did not fight it too much. In Jiu-Jitsu, you learn that to a lot of the times, if someone is controlling you too hard, maybe that's not the time to move. I say sometimes to the students, I say, you never change your roof when it's raining. You don't change your roof, it's raining. Wait for the rain to go, and then you change your roof. In the army for many years, sometimes I was not happy. I was overworked. But one, I would not complain. Two, I would focus on the positive, and I always stick to my values. One of the things that help me with my decisions is does that aligns with my values, or that doesn't align with my values? If it doesn't align with my values, I know it's a good decision. So I think I don't know, people that fight and resist and don't adapt, they tend to get stuck, and that's when depression starts to come, and people start to feel unhappy, and people start to because they start to let that thing get inside of the mind. Master Carlos Gracie in Jiu-Jitsu says a quote. He says, "Be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind." So nowadays I understand that doesn't matter, man. it can be, the word can be following on my head, but I just keep myself calm, and I'm able to revert the situation. And I don't let things to affect me mentally anymore. And if it does, it will just be for a couple of hours. Not longer than that.
Hey, that's been a really interesting conversation, but I think we have to wrap this up because the students will be here very soon. So we come to our last question. And we are here at Unpopular People podcast. What would you do differently if you were popular?
I would help more and give more opportunities. I think the more I can build, the more people I can help. And that's how I think about my business here. I don't see myself, driving the a Ferrari or doing or whatever, I know I can achieve it. But what I feel is like the mission is just to help the others, The more I grow, and if I was more popular, I would try to influence more people in a positive way and try to help more and more and more people. Because I don't like the sense of not many people has a lot, and a lot of people has no much. It breaks my heart, for example, when I see a homeless here in Southport in early morning. It breaks my heart when a kid in Brazil doesn't have the opportunity to have 2 meals a day. So I think the more popular people are, the more they should be helping the others.
Yeah, thank you very much. Where can people find out more about you? Do you have a website or a Facebook page, whatever?
I have a website, virtualbjj.com.au, and then my Instagram is at virtualbjj or at Thiago_soldier. Thiago_virtue. I lost all my Instagram and all my things last year. Someone I don't know, it just got deleted. I could never get back followers and everything, but doesn't matter. So at virtualbjj or at Thiago_virtue. I always try to post a little bit there, I focus much more on the business than on myself nowadays, I don't try to overcrowd my Instagram. I focus more on like the growth of the business itself, because it already takes a little bit of my time in social media.
Cool. We will link all that in the show notes. So thank you very much. And thanks from our side. That's been really great. So I say goodbye from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much as well from my side. It was very inspiring for us, and we think also for the listeners. If you have any final words to wrap this up, that's now the time. Thank you.
Just keep improving. Don't stop. Don't get stuck. Doing a lot in one day is never good. You gotta try to do a little bit every day, so you become a better version of yourself and get to know yourself better, so you know where you gotta improve. I think self-improvement is the key for a successful mindset, to be in peace with yourself and to achieve great results and have great people around you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it.
You will find the show notes of this interview and all the other interviews we did before on our website on www.unpopularpeople.com.
And please don't forget to sign up for our newsletter on our website www.unpopularpeople.com. Bye-bye. See you soon.